get started. I walk around a lot, so I was trying to stay over here so I'm not walking behind you guys. So my name is Cassie Dimmick, and I am a sports dietitian. So I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I work with all different types of athletes. And it's really fun to see what kind of difference nutrition can make in your playing. And so I know you guys are training really hard and doing all that you can in that aspect, but what you're doing when you're not training really affects how well you recover and how strong you get from that training. And so, sleep is important, of course, but nutrition is also very important. And so, and often, you guys are really busy in school, but you're spending a lot of time at practice and training like athletes, but you're not eating like athletes, and that can really negatively affect you because you're breaking your body down and not building it up before the next practice. So we're going to talk about all those other times when you're not in practice, and then we're also going to talk about tournament play and things that you can do on those really long weekends or even day tournaments to help improve your performance on those days too. So if you have any questions, let me know. You're welcome to raise your hand during the talk, and I'm going to try to get through everything in the handout. I tried to give you lots of things on here and ideas just so you can remember. And if there's something that you forgot that I said, I know they're videoing it, but you can also email me. I have my cards here and my phone number as well, so you can contact me anytime. I'm happy to answer your questions. And also, if you try some of the things that I talk about, and maybe we thought that they would work differently and they didn't, I'm always happy to give you other ideas or suggestions. If it's something, I always recommend that you keep a food diary or a log or something that you do so we can look at it and see what you did and then what we can do differently next time. So it's a good thing to do if you're an athlete. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, the day-to-day nutrition is what is very important to build the healthy base. And so a lot of people eat a lot of junk food or maybe skip meals, don't eat breakfast, things like that. And I have laid out here, which I know you guys can't see, so I'm going to look them up, but what a healthy day looks like. What your athletes should be eating at this age to start their day and to fuel their day. I have a lot of athletes that come to me and they're eating like their parents eat, and that's almost never appropriate. So I'm just telling you that right now. If you're feeding your kids the same amount of food that you're eating, that's probably not correct. And so again, these kids are growing, and you guys, you're growing and you're also exercising a lot more than most of your parents. And so I have a lot of kids that come in and their parents are on Weight Watchers, or they are doing paleo and not eating carbs and doing all these things, and their kids are not usually thriving whenever they're eating that low calorie or they're not getting the carbs that they need to fuel their bodies. I definitely have people that, does anyone in here do low carb or ketosis or anything like that?
Unsuccessful.
Okay. But if you do, there are a lot of people that are successful with that, but it's something that you would need to really plan for your kids. And so I just caution you, you want to give your kids fuel that they need. So we're going to talk about what that looks like and how much. So starting off with breakfast, you definitely need to eat breakfast every single day. And on the handout, I say eat healthy consistently. That is so important. It seems like these are little things, but they really add up to make a big difference. So breakfast, you need to have protein. These are eggs. So I usually have my athletes eat 2 to 3 eggs at least every morning. Most growing athletes need at least 20 grams to 30 grams of protein to start their day. 1 egg is 7, so 3 eggs is 21. So protein is really good, and eggs are a great source in the morning. If they don't like eggs, Greek yogurt, that's also good. Usually a cup of Greek yogurt is about 20 grams of protein. So that 20 is kind of that number that you're really looking for to have at least that many. You don't want to do a whole lot of bacon. Unfortunately, bacon is not healthy. People think it is, but it is not healthy to eat every day. And it doesn't have as much protein as you think. It's actually higher in fat. So you need to be sure that you're getting in protein. It could be meat, it could be turkey, it could be other things besides eggs if you don't like eggs. And like I said, dairy products are also high in protein. This is oatmeal. They need to have a healthy source of carbs. It doesn't have to be oatmeal. It could be toast. It could be waffles. It could be anything, but whole grain is going to be your best bet. I just did a recipe on KY3 not too long ago. It's on my Facebook page for Achieving Your Best that has oatmeal banana cookies, and My kids eat that for breakfast a lot, and those are really easy if you need something on the go. And it's just oatmeal, bananas, and walnuts. So I throw a few other things in there too, just to spice them up. But that recipe is on my Facebook page if you want to look at it. And those are really good things too you can bring with you for tournaments, so they're eating familiar foods for those. This is an ounce of walnuts because you also need healthy fat with breakfast. If you have toast, you can put avocado on it, you can put olive oil on it, you can put grass-fed butter, but you need to have the carbs and the protein. And a lot of people will just eat like a bowl of oatmeal or a bowl of cereal. They're not getting enough protein. So you need to have that protein component in order for them to be healthy throughout the day and rebuild. This is a serving of blueberries. A lot of people will eat like 4 blueberries. This is actually a cup of blueberries. So you need to have a whole cup of fruit in the morning. So if you're only eating a few, you need to be sure that you're getting enough. Can y'all see that back there? Okay. I'm going to leave these up here so afterwards you can kind of come back to. So, all right, so that's breakfast. So most athletes that are eating throughout the day, they're also going to need a snack around 10 a.m., 9, 10 a.m., depending on when they eat breakfast and lunch. And so something, and they don't need a huge snack because you want them to eat their lunch, but something again with protein and usually a fruit for their healthy carbs. So you can send with them an apple or something that they can take in their backpack, and a cheese stick or boiled egg, something like that for protein. All right, and this is what a healthy lunch looks like. How many of you guys are bringing your lunch to school? How many people are buying lunch at school? A few people. Okay, so I will tell you this, that in my experience, unless you're going to maybe a private school that has a really good food program, the food at schools, the quality is not that great, especially for getting protein that you need. I have a lot of athletes that eat really healthy breakfast, really healthy dinners, and the only thing we change is them bringing their lunch every day, and they do a lot better whenever they do that because they're getting all the nutrients that they need. The pizza that they have, a piece of cheese pizza and whatever sides the school has just really isn't going to cut it for athletes if you're trying to perform at your best. So it's much better to bring your lunch. My kids, you know, I'm a mom, I'm a working mom, and we make lunches. My kids actually make their own lunches. And so if you're a parent and you're not having your kids make their own lunches, you really should. It will help you. So it will help you to make it easier. It also teaches them to make their lunch and what a healthy lunch should be. And so, and it teaches them life skills as well. And so my kids know what foods are supposed to be in their lunch. They get to pick, so then they have some, some control over that. But they pick it and they make it, and I actually prep my lunches often at the same time, and we're all in there together. And it's actually a pretty fun time. We usually do it twice a week. So like Sunday nights and then Wednesday nights. Those are the nights that work for us. So you can pick a couple of nights in order to do it. Some people wake up in the morning and make lunches every morning. That would not work for me because I'm a crazy person in the morning, so always running around. But if that works for you, that's great. But the main thing is you want to try to bring lunch or send lunch with your kids if possible. So this is just one example. We use lots of little cubes like this, and then you can fold them up and stack them up in the fridge. You can color code them if you have several different children. They have different colors. Because occasionally my kids bring their sister's lunch, and then one likes tomatoes, one doesn't, and that can cause a problem. So, all right. So you need to have again your protein and your healthy carbs. So this is just a turkey sandwich. It doesn't have to be fancy. You can do a wrap. My kids like wraps better than sandwiches, so we do those more often. You can do a chicken Caesar wrap. A lot of kids like that. And again, you can do leftovers. We do lots of leftovers. So my kids love leftovers like pasta or chicken and rice or something like that. So you can bring that for your protein and your carbs, but you need to be sure you have protein and carbs. If you do a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that doesn't have quite enough protein. So you need to get either a Greek yogurt or something else with that. I typically recommend having a Greek yogurt or scored cheese or something with lunch as well. This is a Ciabatta yogurt. Most kids don't like plain yogurt, and this is actually one that doesn't have a whole lot of added sugar and has a decent amount of protein. So I recommend that one. And then they need their veggies and their fruit. This is 2 kiwi here. You want to try to give them, if you've noticed, I had blueberries and apple, now I have kiwi. You want to try to give different fruits with different colors throughout the day. Colors actually are a result of the nutrients that are in the fruits and veggies, and there are a lot of electrolytes that you need to have correct muscle function. And if you get different colors, you're going to get a wide variety of all of those nutrients. And so kiwis are great. Kids really like them. You can actually cut them in half, and leave the skin on, and they can just scoop it out with a spoon. And it's a really easy way to eat it. And then we have carrots and tomatoes and bell peppers for their veggies. And then if they want to do something that's like a pretzel or a treat, then that's certainly fine. I let my kids pick one treat every day for lunch. And I do consider this a treat because it really doesn't have any nutritional value at all. So it just gives you some carbs, but doesn't give you anything really healthy. All right, so that would be a healthy lunch. Then, do you guys mostly practice in the afternoon, I'm guessing, or after school? Does anyone practice in the morning? No? Okay, I put that on the handout just in case, but I figured most of you were afternoon. If you have afternoon practice, you need to have a pretty decent snack. I usually, we again use these little things, so it kind of depends on when you get home from school. My kids usually eat when they get home from school. But again, fruit, you need some protein, which a cheese stick, some almonds, something like that, and then a Cliff Bar. This is good pre-workout fuel. It has 10 grams of protein and 45 grams of carbs, and they're easy to get to carbs. You don't want to have something that's really heavy before a workout. And we're going to talk a lot more about timing in just a few minutes, but this is something like this, or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a bowl of cereal, something like that, that's going to be pretty quick fuel. Those are all good options for after school. And then you would have practice, and then immediately after you'd have your snack, which we'll talk more about. That's just a chocolate milk, which works great. And then you would have your dinner, which I have, this is a small plate, but about the size that most people should eat off of. And this is 5 ounces of protein right here. This is salmon, but it could be chicken, it could be whatever. 5 ounces is about the amount that most, 4 to 5 ounces, most kids would need. So for recovery there. Then we have, if you notice, half their plate is veggies. And that's exactly what all of you guys should be doing. Half your plate should be veggies. That'd be good for parents too. So. And again, those vegetables give you those nutrients your muscles need to function well. And so you need to be sure that you're getting those at dinner time. You don't have to eat Brussels sprouts, but you need to get whatever veggie that you like. And then you need your healthy carb. This is a sweet potato, which is great. You can also do pasta or rice or anything like that. Does anyone know how much, if y'all can see how many servings of pasta this is? 20. It's 4. Oh. So it's 4. I point this out just because this is 2 cups of pasta and almost 500 calories. And so a lot of people overdo this stuff and they underdo the veggies. So if you have pasta for you kiddos, you should not have more than that much at a meal. And a lot of times people eat a lot more than that. So this is something, and again, you want to have the fuel, but you don't want to overdo it. So, because you want to have room for all of this other stuff that you would need with it. So when you put all the other stuff with it, it really is plenty. And then you have your healthy fat with that as well. All right, so that's what a healthy day would look like. Now, if you're hungry and you want more food, that's fine. But I like for you, again, to eat earlier in the day. And a lot of people underdo early in the day, and then they're starving at night. A lot of kids do stay up late and study. So say, after practice, you eat your dinner. But if you're up for 3 or 4 more hours, you might need to have another snack before bed. And the most effective snack that you can have is actually a dairy product. So either, a smoothie of some kind or yogurt, something like that, because dairy protein is really good for recovery overnight. It has amino acids that are really good when you're sleeping to rebuild protein a lot stronger. So dairy would be what I would recommend if you need an evening snack instead of having something like popcorn or chips or something like that, a yogurt or a smoothie or a berry and granola parfait. Those kinds of things would be much better for your sports performance than those other types of snacks. And if you want to have that in addition to the yogurt, that would be fine, but trying to get something healthy in would be good. All right, so consistently eating this way is going to be a good base. The next thing is to stay hydrated. So does anyone know how much water you should drink every day? Okay.
Half your body weight?
Yes. Good job. So half your body weight. And so I have an example on here of what that would look like. So half of your body weight in ounces, not pounds. So that would be a lot of water. So half of your body weight in water is what you want to drink every day. So if you have, 140-pound athlete, then you're going to need to drink 70 ounces during the day. So I suggest having good water bottles. Everybody almost has a water bottle these days that carries it around with them. Try to drink at least one 30-ounce water bottle or so before lunch, and then another one after lunch. This does not include what you drink during exercise. So this is outside of exercise, just to stay hydrated. And again, hydrated muscles actually have more power. They're not going to get injured as likely, and you're going to perform a lot better. You're going to be faster. There's a lot of research with speed and agility and endurance. If you're not hydrated, then you're not going to have as good of a result with any of those. So hydration is very important. You don't want to underestimate that. You don't really need to drink a bunch of sports drink during the day. So what I try to get athletes to do is utilize sugar whenever it's going to be effective for their body, but not overdo it at other times. If you feel like you want to have some electrolytes, I recommend this. This is actually a Gatorade product as well, but it's Propel that's unflavored. And it has a great amount of electrolytes in it. It's the same as the Gatorade, but doesn't have any of the sugar. And you don't need Gatorade unless you're actively exercising. During practice, if you're exercising over an hour and a half is when Gatorade can really help you. But if you're just going to, go lollygag around for an hour or so, just plain water or an electrolyte water is going to be effective. Tournament weekends, this would be great for the athletes to do, during the tournament, between games. Because when you're sitting around, your body does not handle sugar the same way that it does when you're exercising. And a lot of people don't get that. So when you're sitting around, you're going to release insulin if you drink this. Insulin slows everything down, makes you sluggish. It kind of puts your body into that fat storing instead of that fat burning active position that you want to be in whenever you're performing. So you don't want to do this unless you're exercising, because when you're exercising, your body doesn't release insulin whenever you take sugar in. It actually helps your brain and it helps your performance. So when you're just sitting around, even between matches, you don't want to do Gatorade. So it's better during or right before you start. And this would be better between or just on a general day. All right, any questions on hydration? Okay. I always get thirsty when I talk about water. I don't know more. All right. Practice your fueling is the third tip that I wanted to talk about tonight. There are lots of different ways to meet your nutrition needs. I have a few products that people use here. There are thousands of them that people use. You don't have to use anything fancy during tournaments. You can just use all real food and do awesome. But if you find something that your kids love and they really perform well, then stick with that. And just because your friend does well with something doesn't mean you're going to do well with something. Everybody has different stomachs. Everybody has different bodies. So the goal is to find what works best for you. And experimenting with some of these types of foods, so your afternoon snack, that's before practice. So that's going to mimic what you're going to be doing during tournament play. And so practicing with what you're going to eat in between games on a daily basis before afternoon practice is what I usually recommend. So you don't want to do a bunch of new things whenever you go to tournaments. You want to do things that your girls are used to and that your body is used to. Does anyone get burned out on stuff that they eat all the time? Okay, I see that a lot too. So, so if you find something and it works for a while, a lot of athletes that I work with, they get really burned out after, they'll do something for maybe a couple of months and then they want something different. And that's very normal. But if you can stick with something that you know works for a little while and then find something similar with a different taste. And those are questions, like I said, that I'm happy to help with. Also keeping track with maybe MyFitnessPal or just writing it down and your timing and how well you do. If you didn't have a good practice, if your stomach hurt, if you felt like you were having stomach cramps or you had muscle cramps, if you can look back and see what you did that day, it can help you figure out what you need to do differently next time. If you have a tournament where, say, the last day, maybe the entire team is extremely sluggish and they're not performing well, let's see if we can do some different things the next time so the last day they're feeling more energetic. And we'll talk about some of my tips for that. All right, so timing. This gets to be a little bit confusing, so I wrote a lot of things out. You can just skip over morning practice, but I put that in there just in case you have any other kids that have morning practice, so you have the information there. Afternoon practice or evening practice is going to be mainly what you guys are going to be experiencing. So like I talked about before with your healthy snack, you want to be sure that you have something that has some protein, carbs, and fat in that 2 to 3 hours before practice. That might be lunch for you, which is fine, or you might need to have a little bit bigger snack. And again, a bowl of cereal and a piece of fruit would be perfect. If you don't do well with dairy before, then do a Cliff Bar or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich instead. So you just need to experiment with what you do. 30 minutes before the workout. This is where you want something that's going to give your body just a little bit of an extra kick. And this is where you can do a sports drink, or you can do something like a graham cracker. A lot of people really like these, because they're really easy on your stomach and they taste good. So, something like that. Again, we're trying to find things that you're going to be able to do right before you play in a tournament. And so experiment with a few different things. Those banana cookies I mentioned, that's another one that a lot of people like. Also, these Nature Valley Crunchy granola bars, they work great, and they're really inexpensive. So you could do something like this. You can also do the applesauce little, squeezy things. So this is a special product. It's Power Bar applesauce, but it's not any different than the applesauce really that's in the store. So you can save some money on the go-go squeezes and do those kinds of things. But that's going to be some quick carbs, and that's really good for right before you come. So we have a little bit of a drive, so right before in the car would be an appropriate time to do that. Just a little top off of the tank, because it's been a couple hours since they've eaten. During workout, again, if you're working out for over an hour and a half, do you guys work out for over an hour and a half? And do you do conditioning at the end of your practice? Okay. So sports strength is what I highly recommend that you do sports strength during practice. So muscles don't utilize fat very effectively, very quickly. And so what you've done during practice is you've depleted a lot of your carbohydrate stores in your body. So you're not going to have a whole lot left in your tank whenever you start lifting weights. You're going to get a lot more out of your strength training session and your conditioning session if you do sports strength during practice. So I recommend that. I do have a few other options. Gatorade works really, really well. So I always mention this one. They've patented their formula. No one else can use this formula. They were really smart years ago. So this formula is absorbed really well, and a lot of people tolerate it really well, and it works awesome, and it's inexpensive. You can do other things. I usually like to do clear Gatorade, but Scratch Labs is another one that has all natural ingredients and doesn't have food dyes. And that one is very similar to Gatorade. There's Fluid. This is another one, again, with no food dyes. That one has a little bit of caffeine in it, so you can get some that has caffeine in it. And so caffeine is actually something that helps a lot of athletes perform better. It tricks your brain into thinking you're not working as hard as you are. And so, if you have younger kids, I don't know how old you guys are. How old are you? 10. Okay. I would not recommend caffeine for you guys. Okay. So, but really, 13-year-olds and up, most of those athletes do use caffeine, and you don't want to do more than, probably 50 to 80 milligrams per hour. And these drinks will have be standardized and won't have too much. I do not recommend energy drinks like Red Bull and things like that. So that's not good for your athletes. When you're drinking a lot of those and getting your heart rate really high, it actually has caused death in some athletes. So they're not regulated, and I don't recommend them. So don't buy them for your kids. Tailwind is one that's starch-based. And this one, for people that maybe have stomach issues with the more sugar-based stuff, they do better with this. It doesn't taste as sweet, and some kids like it. Volleyball players typically, since it's a start and stop kind of sport, do okay with Gatorade, but it kind of depends on what they're doing. So, but what you need to do is figure that out during practice. What works well for your athlete, because that's what they're going to need to actually drink during tournaments. And they definitely need sports drink during tournaments. So if you don't know what kind of drink your kids tolerate, you need to be sure to figure that out before your next tournament. All right, so right after practice, is the 15 minutes after you finish, especially if you're doing conditioning at the end, is extremely important because your hormones are primed to start the recovery process as long as you get that fuel in within 15 minutes is the goal. So something like chocolate milk is great. Again, I look for things that are inexpensive and that people like. So something like this is going to give you a little bit of protein and healthy carbs. And again, sugar and protein work really, really well for starting to replenish your glycogen stores, which is your energy source, and also for starting that rebuilding process of your muscles. So remember, when you're practicing and you're conditioning, you're tearing your body down, and you want to try to rebuild as fast as possible. And if your body's used to that, and you actually give it fuel, your legs, your muscles in your legs, your muscles in your arms can actually increase their capacity to store fuel. So that way, when you go to a tournament, you can actually store more fuel on your body than if you weren't doing that. Does that make sense? And you get that training adaptation if you eat immediately after, a lot more effectively than if you don't. So a lot of kids may go home and shower and do different things, and then an hour later maybe they're going to eat something. And that's way too late. It's better than not eating anything, but it's going to be a lot more effective if you can eat within 15 minutes. So that 15-minute window is very important. And these are portable. It doesn't have to be this. It can be a yogurt. I keep mentioning these dairy products because they really are most effective in research at starting that recovery process. And they have the correct amount of protein. They have the correct amount of carbs. So those are really easy. But they do have drinks that you can do, protein drinks like this. There are several different options. But again, I want to caution you when you're doing protein types of drinks and supplements, just because a lot of them can be contaminated with things you don't know are in there. So I always look for this NSF certification, which is up here in the corner of this one, if any of you guys want to look at it afterwards. But that means that it's certified safe for sport, and it's not going to have any banned substances in it. So, and you'd be surprised when they do research on these at the high percentage that are actually contaminated with, stimulants, steroids, lots of different things. And the athletes are going to like them because they are performing better, but it's not in the way that you want to. So, so you really need to watch anything that you're giving your kids. If you just do chocolate milk, you're not going to have to worry about that. So that's another reason that that's good. So that recovery meal is important, a recovery snack. And then within 2 hours is when you want to have your actual meal, the dinner that I talked about. And again, that just the 2 cups of pasta should be enough if you've done everything else throughout the day. And you're really utilizing those calories when you need them instead of at night whenever you're not going to use them as much. All right. Does anyone have any questions about timing? The before snacks, that's where you really need to kind of experiment and see what works well. Try to get a few different things so you don't get tired of it. All right, so let's talk about tournaments next. All right, so big things on tournament weekends. Ideally, you would not do anything new, but I know sometimes that's impossible because you're somewhere and you can't bring food in, or it's somewhere you've never been before and you've never eaten anything there. So you would just want to try to do your best and have something similar to what you've done before. But try not to do anything new. And anything you bring in your volleyball bag or drinks, if you can keep that the same, the types of things that you typically do, that is really ideal. So whatever sports drink you practice with, that's what I want you to use during tournaments as well. And the same rules apply during tournaments as you're using during the week when you're practicing. When you're actually playing the game, that's when you want to do your sports drink. So in between sets, when you're grabbing a sip of water, that's when it's going to be most effective to do sports drink. And then right afterwards, you want to go ahead and have that recovery snack. And I have some different things for if you have short time between sets, medium time between sets, or between matches, and a long time, because I know it depends, and you never know until you get there exactly how long you're going to have. So I have just some different options. So what you don't want to do, say you finish finish your game, and then you really don't know how much time you have, but your kid's hungry, and you give them a huge meal, and then they're going to feel sluggish and they have to play in 30 minutes. And so if you can try to figure out about how long you have, you can actually plan ahead and try to give them what their body's going to be able to handle. Because if you give them too big of a meal, it's going to bring all their blood from their muscles where it needs to be into their stomach to try to digest that heavy meal. They really shouldn't eat anything. You guys shouldn't eat anything heavy that day until maybe the very end when you're done. That can be where you can really eat what you want. But during the day, you need to be sure you're having something that is easy to digest and easy for your body. So say you have 45 minutes or less, you want to focus on carbs. So mainly just carbs, because your body's not going to be able to handle a whole lot of protein and a whole lot of fiber and fat and other things in that amount of time. So again, you're looking for something that's going to be easy for your stomach to digest and you can get to the fuel easily. So I have some options there. 45 to 60 minutes, some protein is good. Peanut butter sandwiches are super easy to bring with you and travel with. And often you can get those at places. You can also do a turkey sandwich or a Subway, something like that, a half of a one. That would be fine. You don't want to do a whole 6-inch probably if you only have 45 minutes. So if you have over an hour, you could do a 6-inch sub or a full wrap. Greek yogurt or a Cliff Bar. Cliff Bars are great and really easy. The mint chocolate chip one has caffeine in it, just so you know. It's not a huge amount, but a little bit. So if you're looking for something with caffeine, Cliff Bars can provide that as well. Long time, this is where you would have, an actual meal. So maybe your lunchtime if you're looking at that. Turkey sandwich, chicken noodle soup, and a sandwich. Those are the kinds of things that you want to eat instead of pizza or soft drinks or fried foods or fast food, those kinds of things. So if you can find a Panera, or if the place where you are that you can't bring food in has wraps, that would be something good. A bag of chips would be fine, but you don't want to do like a small bag, not a huge bag of chips. So a lot of people, again, just because you're bored and you're hanging out, a lot of times kids eat all the time in between matches. And you want to try to eat something that is, specific to what your body needs, and then just sip on water until you're going to play. Does that make sense? So try to have it a little bit more structured than just a free-for-all. I see a lot of times kids eating a bunch of candy and that kind of stuff in between. And if you're just eating candy in between and you have an hour and a half, that's going to trigger that insulin response, and that's going to make you sluggish in your next game. Same thing if you eat a bunch of fat, if you eat a bunch of fast food. You need to eat some healthy foods in between. Fruit is good, nuts are good, peanut butter sandwiches are good, turkey sandwiches are good. Those are things that are good. Also, a lot of kids tolerate iced tea really well. I don't know if you guys like iced tea, but iced tea is something that has a moderate amount of caffeine that most kids can do, and they tolerate it well on their stomach. I keep talking about caffeine just because volleyball is such a power sport, a focus sport. You need to be quick and you need to think. And so caffeine really can help with all of those things, especially on these really long tournament days. In the afternoon, that would be a great time to have some caffeine. But again, you need to experiment with that during training. So make sure that you have whatever you're going to drink on tournament days during training. All right, so I have a list of healthy snacks there as well, just to bring for any kind of in-between snacking times. You see fruit is on there. I see a lot of kids bring fruit, which is awesome. Bars are on there, string cheese, baby bell cheese, those kinds of things are good. Those give you a little protein, which is sometimes helpful. Salted nuts, peanuts, pretzels, goldfish, sports drinks, those kinds of things are good, and the iced tea. After your tournament is over, you definitely want to have something like a chocolate milk or a smoothie or something like that immediately, because typically you go back to the room, maybe shower, and then you go eat something. Or it may take you a little bit to get some food. But the food in the evening time, if you can do something like pasta or potatoes and some sort of chicken, that would be better than doing pizza and foods like that. So that would give you at least a little bit better food, especially if you still have 1 or 2 more days to play. And so I know you're done for the day, but you need to think about the next 2 days and have something that's healthy and will give you some of that protein, and something that will give you some fuel with some healthy carbs like pasta or rice or something, or potatoes, something like that. So again, within 15 minutes, that's going to help your performance the next day, and then your recovery meal is also going to help your performance the next day. So those are the 2 things you can do after day 1 or day 2 to make your day 2 and day 3 better. And that's usually where I see most people struggling is like that third day. So you just get really tired. And a lot of times it's because you go into the tournament, fairly well fueled, but then it goes downhill from there. And so hydration is another big thing. If you're not staying hydrated on those tournament days, it's cumulative. And by day 3, if you were a little dehydrated on day 1, even more on day 2, and then day 3 you're very dehydrated, that's going to affect your speed, your agility, and your performance. So, so making sure that you're drinking and you're in the good habit of drinking is very helpful too. All right, breakfast. Do most of you guys eat breakfast in the hotel? Guessing? Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to ask you all some questions. Give me some examples of breakfast that y'all eat on tournament days. Sausage. With what? Who said that? You did. Okay. What would you have with your sausage?
A biscuit and some eggs, maybe.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I know y'all eat breakfast. Or do you? Y'all don't eat breakfast on tournament days? No?
They're liars. They eat those waffles in the hotel every single morning. They're lying.
Waffles?
And they have a Starbucks drink, a Frappuccino.
Yeah. Yogurt and a coffee? Okay, yeah. All right. So, I know some of y'all like waffles. My kids like waffles too. All right, so what you want to think about is something that's going to be a little longer lasting fuel. And so protein is good, so eggs is fine. Sausage is okay if it's a decent sausage. I don't know if it is or isn't, but that's better than bacon typically. But eggs are going to be your best protein source. And then if you can do something like oatmeal, yogurt is also very slow burning, so that would be another good option. Unfortunately, they almost always just have the Yoplait yogurts there, and those are not that healthy. If they have a Greek yogurt, then that would be a great option. If they don't, then you could do the Yoplait yogurt plus some eggs or something else for some protein. They almost always have fruit. I didn't hear a whole lot of fruit from you guys. So you need to, again, start your day with fruit because that's going to give your body electrolytes, which your muscles need, potassium, magnesium, things like that. So you need to be sure you get fruit in, and then you don't want to do a whole lot of sugar. And so some of the sugar things I heard were the waffles, and then maybe frappuccinos, those kinds of things. Those are not things that are going to help you feel best and perform at your best on that day. And you guys have worked really hard to get there, right? Yeah? You train really hard? So you can eat waffles another time. So it's better to try to eat something that's healthy whenever you are trying to perform at your best and give your body something that it needs. So they almost always have oatmeal. They almost always have bagels or toast and things like that. Peanut butter on toast, peanut butter on bagels, eggs, fruit. Again, oatmeal, yogurt, those kinds of things are what I want you to eat at breakfast. And then I didn't mention, but what are you guys drinking? Water? Milk? Okay, water, milk, those are all good things. I heard a juice somewhere out there. You don't want to do juice just because, again, that's going to be a high sugar rush and that can make you feel sluggish a little bit later. So it's better to do water, milk, tea, maybe some coffee without a whole lot of sugar in it. So those are your best options. Yes?
I haven't seen cereal in here anywhere.
So yeah, and cereal, it varies so much. Some cereal is awesome and Fruit Loops are not, so it kind of depends on what cereal. But cereal can be a great choice.
How do you tell?
So
Look at the ingredients.
You can look at the ingredients, but if they don't have the ingredients, I usually go for at least some of the granolas. They will have some sugar, but at least they have oats in them, something like that. So Wheaties typically don't have a ton of sugar in them. Some Raisin Bran, can have some. It just depends on the Raisin Bran. But if you can try to avoid the Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms and those kinds of things. I know they always have Fruit Loops, but yeah. And that's one reason I keep mentioning oatmeal, because you can add your own, brown sugar and you can control that a lot more, and it just sticks with you a little bit longer than the other stuff. So, yeah. Good question. Because, yeah, cereal is good, and it's a great snack, for after school, too. So, But I usually buy healthy granola so that I can look at the ingredient list and make sure it doesn't have a ton of sugar. And when I say a ton of sugar, usually you want to look for less than 10 grams per serving. So is a good general thing to look for with sugar. But the lower the number, the better. So.
And with milk, do you use 2% or something, or do you go with whole milk, or? I
go with whole milk. So whole milk is what we are recommending now as dietitians, and so after looking at all the research, so I recommend that for all of my clients. So whole, organic if possible, whole milk. So not messed with as much as possible. So they actually do some interesting things just to make skim milk. They don't just take the fat off. And so there's a lot of research coming out that shows that it actually increases inflammation, it causes more acne, things like that because of the inflammation. And so they think it has to do with the oxidation of the protein that they add back into it. So it's all interesting. Things tend to always get messed up when we mess with it. So anyway, so that's what we're recommending now. So. Good questions. All right, so I also have breakfast burritos on here. If you could ever get to a place with a breakfast burrito, that's another good option. Sometimes the hotel free breakfast and their burritos are a little questionable, but it just kind of depends. If they have boiled eggs and you like them, that's a really safe source of protein. So, any other questions about food on tournament days? What are some things that you guys have gotten for lunches or for food in your experience at tournaments? Anybody? What do y'all usually do? Subway? Yeah, Subway. What kind of sandwich do you get there? Okay, perfect, yeah. So turkey would be great. You want to avoid doing like the meatball or something like that. But yeah, that would be great. So perfect. And then, again, that night before meal, if you're playing the next day, so the night before your first day, if you're playing the second day, then that night you want to try to keep those meals light as well. I have lots of athletes that'll go eat like cashew chicken, or they'll eat a bunch of pizza and things like that. Just does not sit well with your stomach. It's hard for your body to digest, and remember that you've broken your body down during the tournament that day, so you need to give your body something that is easy for it to reassimilate into fuel that's going to give you the energy you need for the next day. Does that make sense? So try to eat healthy while you're there. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your coaches, and because you've worked really hard to get there. All right, so I really encourage you guys to bring snacks with you when you travel. I always feel like a pack mule, so try to bring with you as much as possible. I know a lot of them say no food, but I usually bring snacks in and as much as I can get in. I will certainly buy the food there if they have something that's decent, but it just kind of depends. So I try to support them, buying water and things like that too, but if you can bring as much as you can, that would be great. So that way you can give your kids, again, things that they're used to, and you want to focus on those things that they've already eaten and they know that they tolerate. Be consistent also, with what you're doing. So again, I know a lot of these seem like little things, but they really do add up, and they're going to give you all the tools that you need to recover. Timing really matters. I keep mentioning that 15 minutes and within 2 hours and an hour, all of those things really do matter. So the regular meal times that most people have, you kind of have to throw out the window and think about, you probably already have just with our schedules and our kids' schedules, but think about timing around the workouts instead of time of day. So you want to really think about that timing and make the most of it. So also, what you're eating, the things that you're choosing every day are going to really affect you. So if you're going to have a splurge, if you're going to go eat a burger and fries and a milkshake or anything like that, it's going to be best to do that on an off day, a day after the end of your tournament, right before you go home. That would be a day where you can say, hey, we're going to go get a treat, we're going to go to Andy's, that kind of stuff. That would be a perfect time to do that, not on a daily basis or not the night before some big performance that you're trying to have the next day. Also, I didn't really mention, body fat percent, but for as far as athletes go, you want to have power, and a lot of athletes, I look at body fat percent more than weight, and I know in school a lot of times they're looking at your body weight, but remember that you guys have more muscle than most kids. So athletes always are gonna have more muscle if you're working hard. So I want you to think about, being lean and being strong and not focusing as much on the scale. So during practice, you want to feel like you have a lot of energy at the end of practice. If you're not, then think about maybe having more sports drink, something like that. So for you guys, you should have energy to get through your practice and perform well throughout that whole 2-hour practice or whatever it is. And if you're not, let your parents know, and maybe you can come up with a different plan and look at some of these suggestions. Usually it's recommended, I did mention this, per hour to get around at least 100 calories worth of sports drink if you're training. So most people can tolerate up to 250 to 300 calories per hour. That's how much most people can absorb and actually use. So if you're looking at, trying to drink one of these, usually it's going to be about 16 to 20 ounces per hour of training during practice. So if you're looking at that. So usually if you have a 24-ounce water bottle, if you send them, one of those and then maybe a water, then that can kind of get them through most of the practice. So, all right. Do you guys have questions?
What if they wake up and they're not hungry?
That's a great question. That happens a lot. Some people just aren't breakfast eaters, Is that always, or is that just sometimes?
It's getting to be always. She used to, but now she's kind of backing off on eating breakfast.
Yeah, okay. So part of the problem with that is that during school, you only have so many opportunities to fuel your body, So breakfast is very, very important. And so I would say you just have to eat breakfast if you have training that evening. Sorry. And it can be something a little bit lighter, I don't know, what do you eat for breakfast if you eat breakfast?
Is cereal?
Cereal, okay. What kind of cereal?
It's Lucky Charms, Honey Nut Cheerios, or because she used to do like a smoothie, and she used to eat eggs, but now it's like no eggs. At all.
So, and those cereals are definitely not setting you up to have your best practice. So, that's something that maybe you could eat on a Sunday where you're not having practice, or maybe you have practice on Sunday. I don't know what day you're practicing, but that would be something that you could have maybe once a week when it's not a practice day. But on a practice day, I'd love for you to go back to the healthy smoothie with some Greek yogurt, some fruit, some good protein, some healthy carbs, or having eggs and toast, an egg wrap, an egg sandwich. Do you like any of that stuff? No. So yogurt and granola, you like that? Yeah. So that would be a good option for you. So, and eating something is going to also, if you get in the habit of eating in the morning, you're probably going to be more likely to do it. So, but as kids go through growth spurts, you'll notice that their hunger levels do change. But trying again to time it, that's going to be most effective for their performance in the afternoon is what you want to try to do. So Sydney, even if you have a piece of toast with peanut butter on it, I don't know if you like that, but that would be much better than Lucky Charms. Much better. And a piece of fruit.
Oh, she'll do fruit.
Yeah.
That's the easy part.
Yeah, that would be much better. So that was a good question. And same thing for after school. If you're not, if you're not hungry, then you can have something small. But even if you have a sip of sports drink 5 minutes before you start practicing, that is shown in research to be beneficial to your performance an hour later. So it really does matter. There's even research that shows if you do a mouth rinse, so say you don't tolerate sports drinks at all, and it makes you sick to your stomach, but you're out there performing and you have to have something, then if you just swish it around in your mouth and spit it out, then that triggers your brain thinking that it has fuel, and you perform better, which is so interesting. So a lot of this fueling during workout, we're really trying to keep your brain happy. So your brain controls all of your muscle fibers, and if it doesn't have the fuel that it needs, which is carbs, then it's going to start shutting down muscle fibers. And we don't want it to do that. So if it starts getting concerned that it doesn't have the fuel, that's your brain's mechanism that it does to protect itself. So it's like, well, I'm going to shut down some muscle fibers that aren't necessary, and so I can preserve the fuel for myself. And so you want to keep your brain happy, and it doesn't take much to do that. So, but that's the reason that you're doing the sports drink and you're doing some of those pre-exercise snacks. So, any other questions? Anyone have any stomach issues or anything like that? I know I put on here somewhere, most people don't absorb and digest foods as well when they're actually competing. You know, there are lots of factors. First of all, you're working really hard, but also nerves can be a factor as well. So if you tolerate everything you're doing really well in practice and then you take it to the tournament and your stomach feels horrible, then definitely let me know, because we may just need to cut back a little bit, because sometimes, again, your stomach just can't handle as much volume of food or as often if you have a little bit of a nervous stomach. So that's another thing that you can think about. So, anything else? I didn't even keep you all late. Okay, so all right, so just to review real quick, the eat healthy consistently, that's the first thing that you need to do. That'll start you off with a healthy base. Stay hydrated, and that's a good habit to get into, again, because that's a big factor on that third day of the weekend tournaments that's going to really make you sluggish and not feel good. So you want to be sure you're going into tournaments well hydrated and staying well hydrated. Practice your fueling. So if you aren't practicing what you're doing on your training days, you need to be sure that you're doing that. Think about timing, and I have lots of examples here on my handout for different times of the day for practice, but be sure that you're getting in some of those healthy foods and time them correctly around your workouts. And then, don't do anything new on tournament weekends. Bring your stuff with you and just do the same stuff that you know works. And then have your splurge meal after you're done. Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. Any other questions? No? Yes?
During tournaments, if you're more than half an hour, is that bad?
If you're thirsty, then you're fine. You're fine, yeah. So as long as you're thirsty and you're drinking, I don't want you to overdrink, because it can be dangerous to overdrink, so you don't ever want to push too much water. But if you are feeling thirsty, then you probably need, and again, half of your body weight is just when you're not exercising. So when you're in a tournament, you're exercising a lot. So you would need more water on those days. And especially if it's hot and you're sweating a lot. So, yeah. And again, you mentioned you didn't eat breakfast. I think you definitely need to, I mentioned some. Do you like toast or anything like that? Peanut butter? Yogurt? Or no? Okay. Peanut butter? Okay. Peanut butter bagel or peanut butter toast would be what I would recommend for you. So you can set your body up to have a lot of energy the whole day. So one other thing, I mentioned sleep a little bit, but sleep is also really important, and I know for kids it's kind of hard, but tournament weekends as well. You don't want to stay up talking to your friends. Again, if you want to have a sleepover and stay up late, then do that not on the tournament weekend. So sleep is really important. Try to go into it well rested, and then try to get as much sleep as you can on a daily basis. Teenagers really need at least 10 hours of sleep if they can get it. So, yes?
I have a question kind of on that line. So some of our teams make pretty big trips. So let's say they leave early in the morning or late at night or end up being a cold for the first episode of years, Minneapolis. So is there something that they can do to help them aside from just being in a car for 12 hours and getting out and going on with their day? Should they be stopping, taking breaks, moving around, run laps around the car?
I know, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And really movement is good, because when you sit for too long, then you just don't get blood flow to your extremities, and so it is good to move. And a lot of places do have places, that they can run around a little bit. Running around the car is a good idea as long as there's a safe place. Or doing some stretching, just get out of the car and move around. You don't have to run as long as you move. If they're walking, if you can park far away from the bathroom, for example, or, just walk a little bit around whatever convenience store, depending on where you are. Sometimes they have really big convenience stores. So that really just getting up and moving. Standing up is not enough, is what they've shown in research. So like people that have standing desks, that isn't much better than sitting. You actually have to move. And so you're looking for blood flow. And so moving your body in space.
So would it be better leading up to a big tournament to do the traveling at night and the kid sleeps through the trip, or leave early in the morning and maybe the kid sleeps after
kids aren't gonna sleep as well in the car as they are at home. So just, what I would suggest is to leave in the morning, even though I know that sucks. But overnight car trips are actually really hard on your body. And if you have a totally flat reclining seat or a place you can really sleep comfortably, that's different. But typically you're not going to get as good of a sleep and not get as much of that deep sleep. So they're going to start off the tournament in a worse place usually. So getting even a few hours of deep sleep at home would be better than a little longer, less deep sleep. So yeah. And then, again, going into all of these tournaments on top of your game. And that's where all this day stuff really helps, because you cannot catch up on those weekends. You're just going to be trying to maintain. You're not going to be able to make ground typically. So if you go in, like I said, with having done all this fueling, so you have more stored energy on your body, you go in well hydrated, you go in well rested, then you're going to start off up here and hopefully maintain that throughout, doing all of those things we talked about, instead of starting off here and trying to catch up. And I know everybody's busy, but again, those little things, if you get into those routines, then they're just going to be habits and they'll get a lot easier. So, yes?
You keep talking about toast and bagels. Are you saying white bread is okay, or wheat bread, or most kids don't like wheat bread.
Yeah, wheat bread is healthier if it's a real, it depends on the bread though. So, I usually try to recommend and go for local types of breads that are made here without all the stuff that bread companies put in them, so, because there's a lot of stuff in bread, but it shouldn't be shelf stable for 2 weeks. It really shouldn't. So, so getting a bread that is more natural and doesn't have 50 ingredients in it is usually what I recommend. But things that are like sourdough bread, a lot of kids like sourdough bread, and that's a white bread, but it's fermented, so it has a lower glycemic index. It's a little bit healthier, so that's a good middle ground. And then you can do wheat blends. There are lots of different types of breads that you can get in grocery stores. Bread Smith, Legacy Bagels, Artisan's Ovens. Those are all local places that make really good quality breads. So, but yeah, it can be any of those. But again, they need the fuel, and you have to think of them as athletes. And I usually, I tell people too that starchy part, like the bread, is such a small part of your day. That's not the majority of food where you're going to get your nutrients from. That's going to be your fruits and veggies, your protein, your nuts, all of those foods. So having, if they don't like other breads, and having a piece of white bread is not as big of a deal. But, yeah. Any other questions? Do you have anything else?
I don't want to ask because I didn't hear all of it, and I'm afraid of it.
Well, it's okay. You should ask.
I think one of my other things, I know you talk about Subway, that's typically what kids eat
Yes.
on tournament days. Is it better for them to have them eat full foot long? Is it better for them to have a salad with chicken? What's the perfect Subway thing for like a one-day tournament?
That's a great question. So if you're getting a 6-inch sub and a bag of chips, that's going to be the same amount of carbs as if you were to get a foot-long sub. And what you're missing is the protein and the veggies usually that they would put on there. So I would recommend getting a foot-long sub instead of a 6-inch and chips, because that's going to be more effective for refueling. So that would be perfect for me. The salad on tournament days is again going to be a little bit harder to digest and not give you as many carbs. So that while great on other days, on tournament days is not what I would recommend.
And then bread-wise, just avoid a flat bread, get a wrap,
Yeah, the wraps are good. The wheat breads are going to be best, but again, really they're looking for those carbs, and if they're going to play again in a couple hours, then they really need to have something that they can get to pretty quickly. So sports nutrition and health nutrition, there's a little gray area in between there, and when you're trying to fuel, you want to have things that aren't unhealthy, but they may not be the healthiest choice because it's going to be something that's going to give you better fuel faster, if that makes sense. So same thing with Gatorade. I don't usually recommend that much sugar, but during training it's very effective. So during a tournament, having some white bread, if they're going to eat that and be happy with it, I would be happy with. So Yeah, but just avoid things like meatballs and heavy types of foods.
So not a personal pan pizza with M&Ms and a Dr.
That would be horrible. Yes. That would not be healthy. Yeah. And never. Yeah, that would not be a good choice. So that would be too high in fat, not enough protein, too much sugar. And again, I talked to them about trying to time sugar during, having sports drink and not eat a bunch of candy, because that's going to, again, really make you sluggish in about an hour eating candy during the tournament. You have lots of other times you can eat candy. It's better to really not eat candy during the tournament. I'd rather you have it after dinner that night, or on your way home from the tournament. That would be a great time to eat candy. So not during the tournament. That would not be effective. Same thing with soft drinks, sodas. That is not going to be helpful for you to perform at your best. So iced tea, water, sports drink during the games, but not sodas at lunch. So, because again, that's going to be that quick sugar that your body's going to respond to by slowing down. So, and that's not.
Sweet tea better than soda?
Sweet tea has less sugar than soda typically. And you can also, at restaurants, you can do half and half. So, and a lot of kids like that. So.
If you have somebody who's not a breakfast eater, they don't prefer breakfast type foods, eggs, this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. Can you alternate, like sandwich, give them a sandwich
Absolutely,
for breakfast
yeah.
with a piece of fruit, whatever,
Yeah.
same scenario,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
I have some clients that eat chicken and rice for breakfast.
Right.
So, it really doesn't matter as long as they're getting protein and they're getting healthy carbs.
Okay.
That doesn't have a lot of sugar.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I figured, I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Good question.
That's her, she's not breakfast eater, but I can get a sandwich in her
Yeah,
in the morning,
that's
but not an
perfect.
egg.
That's perfect. Yes.
Awesome.
Sorry.
I like lemonade.
Oh, lemonade. Lemonade is very much like soda, so it has quite a bit of sugar in it. And some people like to do half unsweet tea, half lemonade. That's another, and that would cut down the sugar in half. But again, you want to try to avoid drinking much with sugar in it, just because that's going to be that quick sugar. Now, sometimes people like to do that coupled with sports drink. So in one of their bottles, they might have 2 bottles with them and have tea and lemonade in one and a sports drink or water in the other. And that can work fine during the game. So, but that would function just like a sports drink. And a sports drink is just like a lemonade, but it just has electrolytes in it. And for volleyball players, you can do something like a Propel in between games to rehydrate. This is, and I don't know if you've seen this, but this is one thing I recommended to them. It's an unflavored electrolyte water. And you may see a lot of electrolyte waters out there like Smart Water and all this, but those do not have enough electrolytes to actually be helpful. So those are added just for taste. This is actually added to rehydrate you and to get your electrolytes back up. And so for long tournaments, this would be great in between. I haven't found this anywhere in Springfield, so I ordered it on Amazon. But it might be something that, you could get for here, or people can order. I order these by the case just because, we use them for different things like that. So, and they're not too expensive off of Amazon if you guys use Amazon. So, and you can get it by the case. But this would be much more effective at rehydrating between games. So, and this during. Alright. Do you have a question? Are you good? Okay. Anyone else? And I'll be around if you guys have questions. You do have a question. Okay.
Sorry. For lunches or breakfast, are deviled eggs or because you have to mix things, so it's not necessarily a hard-boiled egg still because there are other things added to it. But is it still something that you can get protein from?
Yeah, absolutely. So you might mix some mayonnaise and stuff. I don't know what all you're putting in there, so it would add a little bit more fat typically, but that would be great. Yeah, you could have that for lunch, breakfast, snack. Yep, that would be just fine if you like those better than the regular hard-boiled eggs. Yeah. So, and eggs have a lot of good protein. They also have a lot of nutrients in the yolk, so be sure you're having the whole egg. So again, another thing that has changed over the years. So there are omega-3s and lutein and lots of good healthy things in eggs. So, any other questions? So, awesome. Well, so again, starting in January, you may want to start in January if you guys are traveling and all that, but try to really get started when you get back. I know some of you guys are still going to be practicing this week, so this is a great time to get started on practicing some of these things. Again, if you try something and maybe it didn't work out and you really aren't sure what to do, just ask me. I'm happy to answer those questions for you guys. And if you just want me to look at what you're doing, I'm happy to do that as well. So, and I'm always happy to talk about nutrition. So if you see me around at tournaments, you can always come ask me stuff. So if we're at the same tournaments. So anyway, okay. Well, I'm excited. So is everyone motivated? Are we high-fiving? What?
We have a practice tomorrow. So
Okay. You're going to do some of this tomorrow? I love it. What are you going to do specifically? I like specific goals. What are you going to do specifically?
I'm going to try shooting.
Okay, you're going to try a sports drink and see how you do with that? Yeah? What about you? I know what I'd like for you to do.
Breakfast in the morning.
Yes. So, yes. How about you? What are you doing?
I guess breakfast.
Breakfast too? Okay, I like it. Well, let me know how much energy you have during practice after your breakfast. All right, and I'll be up here if you have any other questions. I also have some of my cards up here if you want to grab them, some extra handouts. And if you want to come look at any of the food.
Thank you.